will need to follow my voice as it leads you into a relaxed state of meditation.
Welcome to the Hobby Grow podcast. I'm your host, Ben Owens, hobby grower and ghostwriter for the cannabis industry. Each week, we'll dive into my network of growers, hash makers, breeders, and mentors to give you insight into their journeys as growers, plus information you can use to grow better weed and make better hash at home. Hit subscribe, roll something up, and let's get into it. This episode, we are joined by Leif, aka Regular Grower, Washington State home grower and aspiring home hash maker. Leif was first introduced to cannabis as a youth in Colorado, but got interested in cultivation later on in his adult life and just wrapped up his third harvest. His desire to have better control over the varieties he had access to drove him to grow his own, and his interest in hash has pushed him to continue to evolve as a hobbyist. I asked Leif to join me today to talk about his journey as a hobby grower, his extract journey and how he was first introduced to and decided to start making hash at home, growing hash in a regenerative farming setup, the differences in cannabis on tribal versus state lands, and his advice to other growers out there giving it a shot. Leif, how's it going, man?
It's going. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm excited to be on the show. Been listening to all your episodes. It's crazy. You cover a wide range of topics, and it's really awesome to see where each one of the individual conversations ends up going. So it's nice. I'm happy to be on. Thank you.
No, I appreciate your willingness to be a part of this. You know, like you said, I am trying to highlight kind of a wide variety of growers, you know, not just though they fit in a certain box, you know, all these different versions of what growing looks like and where that journey takes people. So it's cool to be able to highlight people like yourself who, you know, like your Instagram name, Regular Grower, but in its essence, you know, just another regular grower, you know, somebody who's in this because they enjoy the process and the plant and want to see where it takes them.
And I appreciate that. I'm really grateful. I've been thinking about it a lot actually since you and I first talked about doing this, and I'm so grateful that the journey has like been very. It's moved organically, and that's really nice for me because my life moves fast and at a rapid rate. And when I originally got into cultivating, that was kind of what I was looking for. I was looking for peace. You know, I had been messing around with some bonsai trees and they're cool and fun. And I'd go to the nursery and get some nursery stock and bring it home and shape it and get my copper wire out. And what I found was I really wanted to play with that plant all the time, and you can't, you know. So I think like the progression to cannabis was, it seems like a far jump, but it was pretty simple for me. Like I was on a pursuit to find the best cannabis that I could, like a lot of us when we first start. And so I got really interested in cultivating and started watching and listening to a few things on YouTube, a couple podcasts, and really just trying to get my bearing, you know, get my bearings and see where I wanted to go. What medium do I want to grow in? There's so many options and variables. Yeah.
Yeah, let's back it up and dive down a little bit. So,
Oh yeah, sorry.
no, you're all good, man. So, first time consuming, like how long ago was that for you roughly?
Oh man. Okay. So I am one of those guys. So I'm the youngest of four kids, and my older brothers and sisters, they really didn't not take me with them out into the world. You know, I grew up in the early 90s in Longmont, Colorado. Skated. My brothers and I skated, so we were kind of just always around, always skating around town. I actually had my first doobie when I was 11 years old.
Oh wow.
Sounds crazy, but you know, with older brothers and sisters, sometimes that stuff. Sometimes those things can happen. So I didn't start smoking right away from that point. I just it got, you know how it is for everybody. We don't even get high most of the time. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
like it's just this experience. You know, my brother handed me a CD case with a really terrible joint in it, and me and my buddy were like, we thought we were so cool, you know, and didn't have any clue what we're doing. And now that I have kids, I'm like, mortified even telling this story, but and as time progressed, when I was a teenager, I was really experimental. I experimented with a lot of things, but cannabis always has been with me. Up here in the Northwest, I moved to Washington from Longmont, Colorado in 1997, and I was about 13, 14 years old. And so that's kind of when I started consuming on a more regular basis. And, back then we had Beasters, and I think, I think Bubba Kush was somewhere around there. But I mean, that was pretty much it for
Okay.
cannabis. And so,
So when did you start
um,
growing?
yeah, so later in life, so I actually the experimental part, I mentioned that because I actually ended up in addiction for a long time and on heavy stuff. I was actually addicted to heroin for many years, and it took me a long time to get away from that. I finally got away at 28, so I'll have 12 years here. Gosh, this month
Congrats,
actually on
man.
the 16th.
That's huge.
So and yeah, huge. And it was like I mean, the fact that I'm alive is one thing, and especially making it out of that world now, because the world is so much different. I mean, you couldn't find those drugs if you went and looked for them. Now it's all, fentanyl and all the really bad stuff. So I'm very grateful that I got away from it. Flash forward to I spent a couple years just completely clean. I needed to reset my brain, needed to reset my body, my spirit. And I went back to school for IT, and I started going to school, and I'm cramming and trying to raise kids and still trying to be a good husband. And so at the end of the night, like my brain's just racing and wouldn't calm down. And so um, when I would smoke, I tried to smoke, and it gave me anxiety really bad, and which is a common story for a lot of us. Uneducated, we don't know what to reach for, right? So I actually ended up with RSO and coconut oil, and I would mix the RSO into the coconut oil while it was warm, and then I'd just take a little teaspoon of that a couple hours before bedtime, and it really helped introduce my body to cannabis again. And so after a while, I kind of naturally started craving flower again. And so then and this is kind of where I started really getting in, really started investigating strains because I didn't want to have anxiety. I knew, and now at this point, I knew about the endocannabinoid system, things I didn't know when we were kids, right? Or when we were younger. And so that really helped. And so I really started rolling joints, and I would only roll joints because I wanted to taste it. Those were like my criteria. I wanted it to taste good as it could. I didn't want it to give me anxiety because I was trying to alleviate anxiety and high energy and those symptoms. And then oh, I can't remember what my other criteria was, but yeah, so I would roll joints and only joints, and I did that for a year or 2 years, and then tolerance starts to build up, um, and I start going to higher shelf flour, and then I found Cap Junkie was this really special strain. It really spoke to me. It was the first time that I had had a strain that immediately made me feel calm. I was able to conduct myself in a normal way through my day still. And if I needed a little extra, if I needed to medicate a little more, I could use a little more, and it would put me in a good place. So it was really a good all-arounder for me. It was the first time I ever felt that way. So I really dove into Cap Junkie. I'm like, all right, I need to know everything about this. So I found Capulator and Seed Junkie and really started going down the rabbit hole. And Capulator kind of spoke to me a little more. So I ended up veering down that path and started in conversation with him himself. And it was really a huge catalyst for me in this journey because it just got me so excited. Like I was really
Oh
excited to
yeah.
be talking to somebody that I knew was a legend, even though I am newer to the scene and newer to the culture at this phase in my life. Like I did my homework. I know who that guy It's like I know who Capulator is. And so it was really awesome. Um and that after that, every time I picked up a jar and I looked at a strain, I had to know both sides of the strain, mom, dad, and I had to know everything about it. And I think that's kind of where cultivating really started to take this, really created a spark inside me.
With the
So,
genetic side of things and just seeing that
yeah,
lineage.
yeah, yeah. Lineage really spoke to me because I guess, and that might have come from place of fear, really, because I knew that this was medicine for me, but I also knew that it could really mess up my day. And with the way that my life is, I'm like, dude, I can't mess up my day. I can't afford to go into a store and grab something and spend a bunch of money on it, walk out the store, you medicate with that, and then it gives me anxiety. The day's wrecked. I'm like, I was just so tired of going through that. And you can't always leave it to the bud tenders. I mean, all this, it all goes back to education on all sides of the fence, consumer, industry, bud tenders. I mean, like everybody just needs more education. They just need more education on cannabis.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I mean, it's something that I am a big proponent of, as you know, but
hmm
it's it's hard. It's hard on a lot of levels because historically that education has been approached from a sort of patronizing perspective of I know more than you and you're an idiot, and that is why a lot of people get discouraged from growing. But it's also why people are not receptive to feedback. Like you go
hmm
to a different state or a new market and people are still saying things you like in Colorado I haven't heard in 5 years, and at the same time,
yeah,
like they're not going to be receptive to being told they're 5 years behind the curve. So how do you sort of bridge that gap? And like the most infamous is the indica sativa, right? Like
really. Yeah,
it,
yeah.
and I
It
hear it.
really is.
I hear it all the time. Like I've got a good buddy in Missouri that he's like, you know me, I love those racy sativas. I'm like, gosh, like it's not wrong, but it's also not 100% correct anymore. Like he is specifically speaking towards a specific type of plant, but it has nothing to do with the morphology of the plant. Like he's speaking to the effects of
Exactly.
them.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and it's frustrating, and the next one in line, right, is calyx and calyx stigma or calyx.
and Bract.
Yeah, Bract. Yeah, it's like it's just education is going to go a long way, and I think it's rapidly changing. Though, I mean, look at homegrown hashish and look at your podcast here. I mean, the foundation is there, and people are hungry for it. I think that there's this, it's kind of interesting to see like this. I didn't know it was a generation that was popping up when I started cultivating, but I do now, right? Like I've been investigating cultivating for 2 years. I've been actually cultivating since April of last year. And yeah, man, there's like a renaissance going on with this home grow, and a lot of people are getting into it, and it's really exciting. And people are starting to have the same conversations like what we're having now. We're all trying. A lot of us are trying to change the change the lingo so that we can have these conversations in more places, just like you're saying. So
Yeah. Are you seeing like
yeah.
for you it sounds like, control over what was available was a big factor in that. Are you like what are you seeing on your end as far as what's motivating that surge of home grow? Cuz I definitely have my thoughts, but I'm curious what you're seeing.
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time watching a lot of different content. So, like, I started, I'm sure, like a lot of people did, with the AC Infinity crew. Like Basement Grow. What else? High Again. Who else do I got? Homegrow TV. He's always been killing it down there in Colombia, living the dream for sure. And then as I uh, started to get further down the path, then I got into like Future Cannabis Project, Future, and all their offshoots and channels, and then I started getting into like hot dabs and hashish and then I found homegrown hashishin, which was fantastic. But that's what I see. I see a lot of, and so like now that I'm involved in the Discord community with Homegrown Hashishin, and I'm also in a couple others, we see new people come in all the time, right? And they're asking the same questions that we all kind of were asking and thinking when we came in. And so you kind of can tell after a little while, anyways. I feel like I can tell when we have somebody who comes in who's brand new, or somebody who comes in who's been away from it for 10 years and now they're getting back into it. But um, That's what I see. And then locally, this is I haven't had anybody to talk to about any of this stuff for a long time until recently. So in the last 2 months, and not of any part of mine either, which is funny. I had two people locally that started, and they actually sought me out and were like, "Hey, I heard that you're dabbling with this, and I have a few questions." And so that was really cool. I'm like, "Awesome! All right, well, I have somebody local I can talk to about it now, so that's a bonus, you know."
Yeah,
And
that's
I
huge.
can kind of share some of the things that helped me, because when I first started, I mean, I looked at everything. It took me 6 months to figure out I was going to go with build a soil, instead of Fox Farm, and before that, it was like hydro, soil. Which one do I cocoa? What do I do? So it's like, yeah, it's wild.
So you
And
jumped
then
straight
really like
in into build a soil, or you jumped in
I
from
did.
hydro?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I can tell you that. So I'm watching content. Build a soil was a big one for me. So when I found Jeremy Silva, um, that really spoke to me. And I think part of it was because he's from Colorado, and like Colorado's always in your DNA if you're from there, right? Or if you've lived there, right? So that spoke to me. But the regenerative farming aspect of it, the living soil aspect of it, I knew that I needed to be able to do, if I was going to start growing, I needed to be able to do it on a budget because I wasn't going to be able to invest a lot of money. And I saw really quickly how expensive it can be, right? So, Build His Soil, I was watching him for a while, and I was back and forth between the beds and Earthbox. And finally, at the end of it, Earthbox, he did an Earthbox grow in season 3. And that was basically my blueprint for how I started. He did a auto flower in an Earthbox in a 3x3 or something like that. And that's how I wanted to start. So once I decided that, now I went to Facebook Marketplace and I started looking for a complete tent. And I was real specific, and I knew I wanted a full AC Infinity kit because I wanted some of the automation. Because mind you, I'm thinking about kids, I'm thinking about all the things that I'm going to have to be doing at home. And so this whole time that I'm trying to plan how I'm going to start cultivating, I'm thinking about how I'm going to balance it, so it's really important to me to start it right, because if I didn't, then my wife wasn't going to let me do it, like
Yeah. Interfere with
that's
the
a
rest of
rocky
your
road.
life.
Because I'm also the only one in my family that medicates. I'm the only one in my family that cultivates. So she doesn't. And yeah, so it can be kind of lonely sometimes, but I knew I needed to do it correct. I needed to do it for on a budget, and I needed to be as painless as possible for my home life. So those were my big criteria. So the Earthbox Grow seemed like the best move for me. And auto flower was good for me because I wanted to learn the plant first. That was really important to me. I didn't want to jump into fem or photo period because I wanted to know I could do it first. I wanted to get the soil, get the earth box. I wanted to set up my environment. I just knew there was a lot of knobs to turn, and so I tried to keep it as simple as I could for myself because I can make it really complex really fast. And so I got an auto flower. I picked Fast Buds. I saw Apricot Auto, and that one stuck out to me because it had heavy effects instead of racy effects, and lots of good reviews. I saw lots of good reviews about it, and I'd heard enough horror stories about seeds and buying seeds on marketplaces, and all stories that probably were older times, right? But it still stuck out in my head. So 420 Fast Buds, although it sounded corny to me, the website looked good. I'm like, is there proven genetics? All right, let's just start here. Let's get growing. And so I ordered a 3-pack of Apricot Auto, and I started with Build a Soil Light Mix. And then I got my earth box, and I set it all up. And the only thing I ordered for amendments was Rootwise Microbes, the Microbe Complete, and then I got the Q Yaha 60 from Build a Soil because um, I wanted to spread the microbes throughout the dirt, and I wanted it to move with the Q Yaha because it just wets the soil, right? And very basic terms. that's what I had learned up to that point, and I knew that was going to be really important, and I could potentially grow the whole grow with just those things. So that's where I started, and man, yeah, it felt like it took forever to get there, but once I got there and got everything set up, it was really nice. I planted all three in that one earth box, which is hilarious now looking back on it. I remember
A little
sharing a picture.
overzealous.
Yeah, yeah, a little overzealous. Yeah, just not understanding container size and not understanding how much better it is to have one in there. I mean, even at the end of that grow, I still wanted to do two. I ended up chopping the one in the middle down to save the two. And it was a decent grow. They ended up growing just fine. I went through the whole process. It was chaotic. I was running home from work on lunch, I running in there, checking everything because I'm looking on my phone and the temperature would spike or humidity would spike. And I didn't have something set up correctly for me to be able to flip a switch on my phone and have it, bring the temp down quick enough. So it was a stressful experience, but it was a satisfying experience. And it's funny, I've been looking at pictures from that one recently, and yeah, I used to think it was so beautiful. I was like, oh, you're so excited, on your first grow. And then you look at pictures of it now, and I'm like, oh boy, it's not as good looking
Oh
as you
man, I
thought,
get
was
that for
it?
sure. Yeah, I would spend all this time photo like, and it's been cool, right? Like I'm sure you've had the same process of like going back and seeing how far you've come. But
Yeah.
definitely at the time I was like, man, this is some great weed. I'm so thrilled to be taking all these photos and everything else, and you have no idea how much it's going to improve.
Yeah, it's crazy. And really like kind of growing like it might be my last time too, just because it was rocky. I definitely, and these are parts of my story that I do like to share because I like to remind people like, hey man, we have families too, and we have things come up. It's not all peachy. It's not always good. Our wives do, our partners do get upset at us sometimes because we're spending too much time with the plants, and or maybe we're being frantic about something and we have a bad attitude. I mean,
Or
it's
somehow
just
you end up with a new
life.
rosin press.
Yeah, yeah, life happens, like, and I just like to remind people of that, so I got an ultimatum is what ended up happening. So I was very excited. Um, and I brought this thing to completion, and she basically just asked me like, "What's your plan?" And it was real stern, and I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, what's your plan with this? What are you doing? Are you going to sell it? And I'm like, well, no, no. I said, I'm just trying to grow for myself, And she's like, all right, well, this is the deal. You need to get your medical license. And if you get your medical license, then you can do it and you keep it away from the kids. And I'm like, she said, you do those two things and you can do it. I'll leave you alone. And I was like, okay, deal. so,
Yeah, it's a fair trade
so
for sure.
I'd proven to myself that I could do it. And so I went and got my medical card and got approved and did all that stuff and came home and set up a new space, because I was kind of just doing it off in a shed basically, and just see if I could make it work. I knew immediately after I grew that autoflower, though, almost immediately when I finished that harvest, which didn't turn out good, by the way, because I don't know if everybody messes up the dry and cure, but I mean, even this last harvest, I tried to save a little bit of flour, and I'll tell you what, drying and curing is one of the hardest things in the world. Like, oh
100%.
man, it is so hard. And it's so frustrating. I better
Well, and
not
it's
get.
strain dependent, plant dependent, like
Oh
it's
man, everything
climate
changes,
dependent,
right? Mm.
season dependent.
So yeah. So at the end of that, I said, okay, I see what's going on, and next time I'm going to grow one in the earth box. I'm going to buy another earth box, and I think I'm going to go fem. And so at this point,
Fem
compound
photo.
genetics. Yeah, fem photo. Thank you. Yes. And so compound genetics. And so at this point, genetics, genetics, genetics. Now, genetics is at the top of my mind. I grew the autoflower. I've proven to myself I could do that. And then I go to the photo fem and I said, okay, well, I'm going to get compound. I really like compound. Chris Lynch, I read an article in Leaf magazine about breeders, and Chris Lynch popped out to me. Grape Gas was one that I really liked, and I just really loved the way his flowers look. Everybody from now he's with Cypher, of course, but yeah, Compound Genetics just stuck out to me. So I started scanning through their catalog, and then they dropped the Joker Volume 2 line, and I picked out UK Riot. And what was it? It was London Jealousy crossed to Joker 31. And so I got that. Expensive. It was the first time I spent that much on seeds, right? So I
Oh
think they
yeah.
were $200 or $150 for three. And
Oh
woof,
wow.
I'm like, woof. But fem, so I'm like, okay, hopefully they'll all pop. And if they all pop, they'll be female. So we'll be okay. So I pop all three of those and get going. And now I have Earth Box, and I bought another Earth Box, and then I bought a knockoff brand, the City Pickers. And these are all SIPs for anybody. Yeah, yeah. So SIP planters, sub irrigated planters. A parent's best friend, I'll tell you what, or a busy person's best friend, because you can stick the water in down the tube, and all you got to do is make sure, check on it. And if it's empty, then you add a little bit more. It's very nice. you can
Yeah.
get you can get into the weeds with watering it. I mean, there's special things you could do. You don't fill it all the way up, and there's different things. But I just kept it simple. I'm like, is there water in it? Nope. Okay, filling it. So I planted all those, and I think I took ended up with two at the very end. And at this point, through that grow, what I learned, because the first one was really just getting my feet wet. And now I'm more focused on the plant itself. I'm looking at morphology and, okay, I want to, learn more about the plant itself now that I had environment. I wouldn't say dialed, but I had my environment pretty buttoned up. So I start growing these, and I got some bud clips because I was learning what do they used to call it? The Cushman chiropractic. Super
Oh
cropping
yeah.
is another term they use. So, and I saw the power of that because I accidentally broke a branch, and I did what most of us probably do. I taped it back up, and it was clean snap too. And so I taped it with some masking tape, and I showed myself that these little guys really want to grow. And it grew back, and it was a big knuckle. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And I start investigating about that. And that's when I found a super cropping and Cushman chiropractic. And so I got some bud clips, a little expensive, but they are really nice. I do like them. And they sell cheaper versions of them, but the same concept. You're bending the branch, and it's growing to hold the support of the bud, and that was a big deal for me. So I started training, and now I'm doing things that are more akin to bonsai, and so I'm really like in my zone now. You know,
It's funny how it all
I'm like,
comes
okay,
together, right?
yeah, it was cool. I'm like, I like to train my plants, and I like to defoliate, and so I think what I learned through the UK Riot Grow is really um, how and when to train, when to back off. So I'm kind of learning, listening to my plants a little bit more, um, and watching the flowers develop. I had to switch. Oh, that was another thing. So auto flower is you didn't have to switch. I didn't have to switch my light schedule. So now I'm switching for flowers. So that was cool. That experience was cool. And that's pretty powerful. The first time you understand how you can control your plants with light, that's kind of the big aha moment for a cultivator too when you're first learning. I'm like, oh, this is really cool, man.
Yeah, and
Um,
realizing the control. I mean, again, to your point, right? Like autos are great for starting because you don't have to worry about lighting changes or some of the training, and you don't have this extended veg to play with and scrog out or do some of these
right.
things, and so you have more freedom to play with a photo, which is great once you've made it through.
Once you made it through, yep. And that was a big one for me. So yeah, I flipped those into flower, and man, they were just frosty and gorgeous, and and really could tell the difference. I don't know what it is about autoflowers, and I'm not knocking them because they've come so far, and they're gorgeous, and I think it's a really good option for a lot of different reasons. Keep an extra flavor around, for all the reasons that we just said as a beginner. There's a bunch of
It's
different
just
reasons, but I
easy.
always
It's
kind of
like a
look,
cruise
yeah,
control plant. You're like, I'm just going to do autos this crop.
Yeah, yeah. So but I kind of look down my nose at it, right? Like, not
Oh
look
yeah,
down
you're
my
not
nose
alone.
at it, but it's not what I want to smoke, right? And at the end of the day, that's kind of the most important thing. I'm like, am I gonna smoke it? No, probably not. So, yeah. So I was excited about the UK riot. It really looked good, and the frost started coming, the smells started coming, and that was a powerful grow for me, as far as like my inspiration and wanting to keep going and all those things. But it's funny because almost as soon as I was in flower, I'm like, dude, I'm doing regulars next time. So
Oh yeah.
I think there's this theme. I think there's this theme of me trying it one way and then pretty quickly finding out like, okay, I'm ready for the next step now.
Right.
And I don't know, maybe it had something to do with the way that I so thoroughly investigated like and researched everything. I mean, I studied it like I was studying IT subjects,
Right.
as an older guy, because I didn't go back to school until I was 32. So trying to relearn how to learn again.
Yeah.
It's like spent all those years on the streets and running around and not being a part of responsible life. Like when I came back to it, it was tough. But once I got into it, I just like can't stop. Now it's an obsession. I study everything to the death.
Right. Well,
Like
and
don't
there's
let it
there's
go.
something that comes with the familiarity of the experience, right? Like you're the first time you do anything, you're hesitant because if anything else, if nothing else, you just haven't been there before. It's unfamiliar. And you grow an auto, you're like, cool, I can do this. Maybe I'll try a photo. I think I can turn the lights on and off, or I can change a
Yeah.
couple of these other
Yeah, that's a
things.
good
And then you're
point.
like, well, I was really trying to avoid males, but I think I could probably spot a male at this point, and you sort of like you start removing these throttles that you've self-imposed as a learning process.
And really seeing that you can do it. We do. I think it's what do they always say? Just grow, like just plant the seeds. And I really believe
Just keep
that.
it
I
alive.
don't care. I don't care what they are. Just put them in the ground, man. Put them in a tiny, um, put them in a little cup. Grow the whole thing in a cup if you need to, but just get them in the ground and growing because that's really where it started for me.
Yeah, no,
So
I get that. So were you cloning at this point, or I don't know if you clone now, but like having spent that much money on a pack of seeds for the first time, like was there an effort to keep cuts around or?
yeah, so I did, but I knew with the femmes, like it wasn't on my radar yet. I was like, I was pretty, it's more about space, because I'd gotten over the hurdle of growing, and then I got over the hurdle of having it accepted by my wife, and then so I'm like, okay, cool. Clone. I don't need to clone this round, but I think I'll do regulars next time, and I think I'll take clones. I'm not ready to keep males, but I think I'm going to try clones next time. And so in this last grow, which is the one I just finished, the ZZ Bop, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But I knew I wanted to take clones, and it was on my radar. Um, but I learned a really good lesson in not preparing correctly.
Oh yeah.
I didn't prepare a space, and I didn't plan ahead. I wasn't thinking ahead enough. It obviously wasn't big enough on my mind that because by the time like I hadn't investigated when exactly I should be taking a clone, right? And so I'm like, oh man, do I do it right before flip and da da da? And so I ended up taking a couple of cuts and I put them in. I have these bud cups, and I really like them because you can pop the bottom out. They're really, really nice. And so I took clones and planted them in my bud cups with soil and tried it that way. I'm like, if they survive, then they survive. We'll see how it goes. And so, but I didn't have a dedicated space. And so my clones ended up getting messed up. They didn't, my light schedule was all messed up. And so I ended up having them on 12-12 and they flowered. And it's like, I was like, oh, okay, cool. So now what do I do? And then then I started, I'm like, well, I could re-veg them. Do I want to re-veg? I'm like, I guess that'd teach me the process of re-vegging, but I'm like, no, I'll just wait until next time. Kind of bummed me out though, because the three plants that I ended up with on this harvest, I really wish I would have been more prepared. But but that's a big thing for me. I think that's, if you ask me the big things that cultivating has taught me, one of the biggest is it has taught me how to actually plan things out. I really have lived a lot of my life by the seat of my pants, just kind of on the fly, and man, if there's one thing about this life that I know, it's like if I don't plan out certain parts of this cultivation and hash making process, then I'm doomed from the very start. I cannot wing it. I can't wing absolutely everything, especially not with hash
Well,
and
and
cultivating.
it's funny, right? Because like you and I have talked about in the DMs, like and Shanty mentioned on his episode, the hobby is more forgiving than we like to believe at times. But at the
Mhm.
same time, when you need it to be forgiving, it's not. Right? Like
Right?
beginner's luck. You're like, I tried to do a whole tray of clones because I figured I'd fail, and I got 98% rooted. What the hell am I going to do with all these? And then you're like keeping cuts
Dang.
around, and you're like, I can't. What the hell is going on? The tray won't root.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's exactly it. And I think it's important though. I think that's a part of the relationship that you have with the plant. For me, anyways, that's kind of the way I see it. It's like, that's funny the way you said that. I like the way you said that. When the plan is forgiving most of the time until we need it to be forgiving, right? But I think that's the part of the lesson. It's like, yeah, dude, you should have planned that out a little better. Like if you want the best from me, this is the plant speaking, then you got to plan out. You got to plan it out. So I don't know.
Well, and like somebody explains it to me, sort of like an engine to a car, right? Like I am not somebody who understands car engines. I have good friends who are car guys, but the point was made that if you have a problem with your engine, you you don't want to take it apart because you have no idea how to put it back together. You don't understand how it works. You don't know how to troubleshoot it
Right.
because you don't know how A gets to B gets to C. Whereas if you understand how the engine works, then you can sort of wing it as far as like taking it apart or poking around inside of it to try to find
Totally.
things because you mentally you're aware of like, oh well, based on this sounds or based on what I know about combustion or whatever, this is probably where it's happening, and in
Yeah.
worst case, you've got a bunch of parts that you know how to put back together. And so, sort of to your point, like if you do the upfront research and you do the upfront prep, you can, you don't have to keep that guidebook next to you and follow each step. Like you can kind of wing
Right.
it once you conceptually get there.
Exactly. That's a really good point. I like that. Yeah, because I'm not a car guy either, and engines have always been, uh, they've
It's a
always been a
black
mystery to
box.
me. Like, but I've definitely taken apart an iPhone, right, and tried to put that back together as well. And it's like, oh my goodness, yeah, I like that. I like the way that you said that. That makes perfect sense, man.
So along this journey, then you decided to make hash. So like, let's talk about that. Like, what was your introduction
Yeah,
to the hash
I
making
missed that part.
process?
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
No, I we'll go all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. So in UK riot, so at this point, my tolerance is pretty, my tolerance is pretty high, and that's not so bad. But I'm starting to really like, I can't use during the day, and this is really starting to affect me because that was a kind of a rule of mine when I first started with cannabis. Again, I was like, man, I can't do it during the day. I got school, I got all this stuff, but it's going to be how I settle down at the end of the night. And eventually, that changes with time, of course, as we get more comfortable with cannabis and our endocannabinoid system, and we understand it more. We're able to medicate properly. And so I was kind of like, but like combusting cannabis was not working for me. I'm like, dude, I can't do this during the day. I just get tired no matter what I smoked. Like it didn't matter what I smoked. And so I actually looked at dry herb vapes. I looked at the stores in Bickle. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, maybe I can do that during the day. So I ended up getting a Crafty Plus, and I got that, and I started using that, and it was a new experience for me. It wasn't as strong or as potent, as I'd hoped. And they say you can dose up, but I don't want to load up 4 or 5 capsules to roast in my dryer vape back to back. But what I did like about it was that it allowed me to get like the calm and the peace that I needed to calm that feeling in my chest down, when I feel like I can't breathe. And then I can still go about my day and do all that stuff. So But the dry herb vape was kind of weak, but it kind of got me looking at everything else in the rig space, right? And I used to actually be pretty down on vapes and concentrates, and not outwardly. I didn't ever shame anybody for it, but I had a couple buddies who dabbed, and they were and seeing education plays a big role in this observation as well, because I just knew dabs. I didn't know BHO rosin at this point, but they kind of affected them in a negative way. They kind of spiraled and let it take control of their life in a way that wasn't good. And I just noticed it. It was kind of a pattern with people in my life, and so I kind of was down on concentrates. I was worried about it. I'm like, yeah, that's going to give me anxiety for sure. I better just stay away from that. And then with the dry herb vape, that's actually how I ended up trying it, because I'd gotten a sample of rosin, because I actually do multimedia and I take care of the website for a dispensary here in town that the tribe owns, that's local here. My wife is a part of that tribe, and so I work for their enterprise side of the tribe, and that I do IT for all of their for-profit businesses, and the dispensary is one of those. So kind of get to go in and out of the dispensary without having to really work in there, and so I get some of the benefits. One of those benefits is samples, and so I got a sample of rosin, and I didn't know how I was going to try it. And I was like, well, put a little bit on top of a bud in my dry herb vape. Let's try that out. And I don't know what it was, but the experience was so much different, so elevated, yet so clean, and I had clarity still. This was a big deal. Like, I'd achieved something without really knowing what I was doing. I was
Right.
like, whoa, 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 whoa,
I
what is
stumbled on
this?
something here.
Like, it didn't ruin me. I don't have anxiety. Okay. And so I actually went to work the next day, and I have one of my buddies who works at the same dispensary has a Puffco. He had just gotten a Peak Pro with the 3D XL. He's all excited about it. And so I was like, bud, you gotta let me try this thing, man. I gotta find something out. I think that I've convinced myself that I want to try rosin. I said, but I need to try it out of something like that. So he handed me his Puffco, and I was able to borrow it, took it, and took my first real dab. He's like, well, make sure you stay low temp, don't go past this temperature, and da 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 da. And so my fear was enough. I'm like, all right, cool. So I think it was like 470. And man, I mean, the experience was so much different. I was like, what is this? Like, how did I talk badly about hash and in my head for so long? I'm like, this is magical. This is everything that I've been looking for. It's flavor, it is medicine. Like, I feel medicated effect immediately, and it washed over my body like a calm warm blanket. I was like, oh my goodness. And clarity again. This is so big for me, because I can't get slowed down in my day. It just really is not good for me. So
Well, and what a
yeah, it
soft
was.
introduction. I mean, like, soft, whatever. But like,
Yeah.
when I started
Yeah,
doing
not.
dabs, it was hit this sort of stable butane hash that we made in a PVC pipe on this red hot nail, and try not to die.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, dude, that scared me. Yeah, I heard those stories, and I'd talked about it with people, and I'm like, so I had a pretty
you're
healthy
like,
fear
no
going into it. And
blowtorch. Just hit a
yeah,
button.
I'm
It's
like, give me
rosin.
that right
Yeah.
there, dude. And so then at this same time, it was kind of serendipitous. So this is like halfway through the UK riot grow, and the pivot had just come out. So I see an ad for the pivot, and I'm like, whoa, okay, crazy, because at this point, like, as soon as I hit the Puffco, I'm like, yeah, dude, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna have to get one of those, man. So I'm
Yeah.
like, then I go and look. You're like 420, yeah, right, dude. Um, yeah, prior to being ahead, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Straight
four
custy
hundred.
price.
No way. Now you spend $400 on a black market glass banger.
Right. No, I mean
So
that's insane as well. Like when I got into glass, like heady glass nails were like $180, and then like Mothership dropped their swings, and that was like, oh shit. Like now we're getting into and now it's like people are like $900 for a slurper. Sure, take my card.
that's so
Like,
crazy.
what the hell?
It's funny. Like, I don't want to go down a tangent on this too much, but
And
I
if
did
you
want
can
to say
afford
it
it,
so I don't
like
forget.
it's like anything
But
else, right? Like a BMW or anything else, like you're gonna have to spend more money on the accessories. Like so, no hate, but it's insane how far it's gone.
it is insane how far it's gone. Yeah, and it's crazy. Like living in Washington, I feel kind of lucky to be here too because that kind of always played a role in my inspiration
Yeah, the
as well
glass
because I
scene's
knew the
huge.
history that's up here. I know why BC Beasters are called BC Beasters. I know motherships in Washington. I mean, like, there's so much history with cannabis in Washington State. So I like definitely knew that I was in a very special place. And so that played a factor in me continuing to be inspired for sure. But yeah, so not to get down that tangent, but yeah, so I get a Puffco pivot, and that was, I mean, it was lights out. It was end of the story. Like, I had immediately decided I was harvesting the UK riot. I'm like, I'm gonna wash half of it and I'm gonna hang the other half. Like, I mean, it was just so instantaneous. Like, I knew my relationship with cannabis was changing. And after that, in between me having my first dab and then getting the pivot, I was, smoking hash holes and just starting to get experience, starting to get experience with hash. And it just felt like a marriage of all the things that really I love about cannabis all in one. I'm like, it's everything that I'm searching for in the flower. And now that I'm educated, I know that that is the superior form. I'm like, yeah, dude, I should have been here the whole time.
Yeah, I mean it's something, I've had my own interesting journey with extracts, and I've gone through phases where I'm extract only, and then I've gone back to flower and sort of waiver, but seemingly the consensus, especially among a lot of the hash people I talk to these days, is combustion is, not to date us all, but it's old fashioned. Like if you look at this next
Mhm.
generation of consumer, and I'm not talking like the current 21-year-olds. I'm talking, like the 18-year-olds and younger who've
Yeah,
been introduced to
Benjamin.
vapes. Yeah, the Benjamin, and like that's and not just for weed, like tobacco, whatever. Like they've been introduced from a vape first standpoint. It's like digital first
Yeah,
versus analog first. Like, and
yeah,
so we're gonna see a lot of concentrate consumption, I think, and not necessarily like you and I like take dabs or use a Puffco, although that's probably more intermediate than again a slurper dab or something similar. But
yeah.
the average consumer is trending towards things like vapes, love it or hate it. That's the convenience factor. It's discreet. It's socially acceptable to hit it in Target. It's
Big time.
it's all
Big
the
time. Nailed
things.
it. Yeah. And it feels like the cookie that everybody wants to crack, And I don't mean
Right.
that in a greedy way. I just mean like it's definitely the conversation on all of us in the hash world's mind, right? Is when we talk about this topic in particular, it's like, how do we introduce that entire generation? How do we help them take the next step? And
Right.
are they willing to take the next step? I think it's a really good observation. You said like the analog to digital. It's the same thing as us being one of the last. I don't know how old you are, but I'm about 39.
Yeah, I'm 34.
Okay, yeah. So like we're like one of the last generations that didn't grow up with cell phones.
Yeah, yeah. Or
And the
social
generation
media
right. Or social
or
media,
internet.
exactly. We had, or internet, exactly. You had to tell your mom, get off the phone,
Right. Yeah. Hey,
like,
I need to
get off the
connect.
phone, mom. Napster and MSN Messenger or whatever. That's what we had. Yeah, and it's just different, and that's kind of the same beast we're dealing with. And it'll be interesting to see if they veer away from the Benjamins and the vapes and go to the more traditional, kind of like kids are going away from phones, right? Like the really younger generation. I'm watching kids in my family that are under 10, not outright rejecting phones, but not really being interested in them as much as the other kids are. And that's a big deal. And I
Yeah.
just wonder if we see a similar trend in with cannabis and or with hash and with that generation of kids.
Yeah, it's interesting too because from a grower's perspective, right? And I'm sure you've seen this firsthand. Trying getting into washing is like getting started growing is an investment in itself, time, money, space,
Mhm.
whatever. Then to go, I'm gonna take this and make it into my own vape pen is like a whole
Yeah,
nother leap. It's a leap to take it to an
crazy.
extract, but then to be like, I'm gonna go from seed to vape at home is not it's not as hard as people want to make it out to be, but it does require equipment. It does require a certain level of research and knowledge and planning, and also
Yeah, because
hopefully
now you're looking
genetics
at
that wash.
viscosity. Yeah, dude, I'm like, that's crazy. You guys, I commend you guys that are putting it in a vape. Yeah, I'm not there definitely, but I can see. I mean, yeah, because now you're looking at the viscosity of the oil, and I can imagine all the rabbit holes that you go down when you start getting into it. Man, I can. Yeah, how long you
Well,
been
and
doing
like,
that now?
so I vapes were the last piece of my puzzle, quote unquote, as
Yeah.
far as the things I still needed to get from a dispensary. And so I started making vapes a few years ago.
Okay.
So the first time I made vapes was with BHO, and it was accidental. Like I had overcooked it and it just became that syrupy, decarboxylated kind of distillate like
Right.
substance. And was like, what the fuck
Yeah.
do I do with this? All right, let's try to fill cartridges with it,
Right.
And
Yeah, I'm not
like
wasting
that
it.
was an
Yeah.
accident. And then fast forward to learning, again, like the super basic rosin vape tech of just heat it until it's syrup and won't
Yeah.
crash out, like all of a sudden it was like it's really that easy. And now like I see cardiologists in the discords with like talking about spinning and doing some of these non-heat options, and that's
Oh,
incredible.
what a
Sonny and I
master.
have talked about that. Yeah, like it's
What a
because like
master.
again, where I live in Colorado, there's a lot of used grow equipment on the internet. So I was able to get a vac
Yeah.
oven that I wasn't afraid things were going to blow up in, and I was able to buy
Yeah.
that super cheap on like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. And then I can heat stuff in it. Whereas, some people don't have a vac oven lying around because don't have access to people who formerly blasted BHO, and so
Right.
they're
Yeah.
using their home oven or they're using their home toaster oven, and that's great. But like you said, like your wife probably doesn't want a jar of rosin cooking on the counter in the kitchen.
Yeah, dude. Oh man, but yeah, this last one, I'll tell you what, I harvested about a week ago. Started anyways. I had 3 plants in the room, and man, the house has been stinky the whole time, and I just unavoidable, right? Like I told her before we went into it, I said, look, it's gonna be a little different this time. I have to use the fridge. I have to use the freezer. I'm gonna get it out as soon as possible. Anyway, it's this whole conversation. But um the hash in the fridge is the worst, dude. I mean, it's not the worst for us, right? I'm like, it smells delicious, but it is so strong. It was so strong. And
Pungent.
yeah, just unbelievable, dude. Dang, I lost my train of thought. That's all right. So I guess like I guess we were at UK Riot. You want me
Well, and talking about your
to
first wash, yeah. So like
yeah.
take us through that. Like, what did you, high level, like what were you doing? Like bag stack, like air drying, etc. And then like what how like I guess just walk us through kind of that journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So I keep using this word, but I feel like the planets aligned for me a couple times through my learning to cultivate and through my journey. And one of those things that aligned was I hadn't even mentioned that I was gonna harvest half of it for hash and half for flour. And my barber texts me and he says, "Hey, I know you're cultivating. Look at these." And he sends me a picture of 1 gallon Bubble Man bags, like Marcus's Bubble Man bags, and a picture of the Nug Smasher mini rosin press. And he says, "Do you want this for 150 bucks?" I was like, what are the odds that my barber
Universe
texts me
aligned,
right
man.
now? I'm like, how? Because I literally, as soon as I decided, I'm like, man, I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna have to do this simply. I'm like really gonna have to hold my horses as far as like making investments. I can get bags, like in my head, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, I could use a hair straightener first time. I said, but if I'm me, I want to get a press. I like to do it right the first time, so I don't have to buy stuff a bunch of times. And yeah, here comes this text. I'm like immediately, yes, absolutely, I'll take it. So I get these, I get these small 1 gallon bags, and I get the press, and I bring my harvest down. And so now I'm like trying to decide how I'm gonna do it. Right? Am I gonna throw it straight in the freezer? Because that's hard to do. When you finally decide, and I know you know this, but when you finally decide to do hash, you're like, I'm gonna do what?
Oh my
I'm
God,
gonna throw
yeah.
it in the
The
throw it in the
first
freezer. What
plant,
if it doesn't wash?
the first time I did that
Like,
and committed a full plant to hash, it was, you're just like, I really hope this works. Like I put all
yeah,
this
dude.
time and effort
Yeah.
into this. Like I know it should work in theory. Everything says it will, but
Oh, did
man, is
yours
it
work?
painful. Yeah. So actually, so my first wash was an auto. It was the
Okay.
banana hammock from Ethos,
Oh
and
yeah.
I got like 4.1%, something like that. And
Hmm.
air dried it and pressed
Nice.
it, and it was an incredible experience. And I also am prone to saying that if I had gotten a lower return, like who knows if I would have continued down that rabbit hole. If it had been a ghost wash
Interesting.
and
Yeah.
like been
Yeah.
like, man,
Totally.
fuck this. Like I'm so done. I just threw away a whole plant. Like I'm out. Whereas
Oh
I
man.
did I
Yeah.
did end up with something that was, it wasn't like a 5 or 6 percenter, but it wasn't a ghost wash. And so
And it wasn't nothing. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it proved to me, I could do it. Like going back to that, whole
Absolutely.
point is like once you're like, all right, now I'm confident. I know what this looks like. All right, let's do
Yeah.
this.
So yeah, so two things happened to me. So mine didn't work out. So this is
Okay.
what's interesting. So I harvest the plant. I chopped the whole thing down because I really messed up my first one, right? My dry and cure. And the very first auto I had broken it down branch for branch, And I'm in Washington, so it's just moist and humid and we're fighting moisture here all the time, right? And so I broke down the first one branch by branch, next one the UK rat it, take the whole plant down, and I hang it upside down. And I can't decide if I'm going to throw it right in the freezer or not. And I end up doing what they call zombie tech. And I only learned this because I read the Everything Solventless Guide from Pele Polar. And in there they go over a method where you hang dry your plant for a couple days and dry it just a bit, and then just about the point where it's getting crispy on the outside, then you take it and you break it down and you throw it in the freezer. And so I don't know why I couldn't remember exactly why I decided on this. And I think it was just apprehension. I'm like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't want to throw it all the way in the freezer. Okay, this is the best of both worlds. This is what I'm going to do. And so, so I did that. I left the other stuff hanging for the flour, and I let it freeze for 24 hours. I think I waited another 12 just to be safe. And I break it all out. I knew I was going to have to wash outside. Got my bucket ready. Oh, rewind really quick. I bought, this was a big decision for me because I had actually taken the little 1 gallon Bubble Man bags and I did a test wash. That's right. I did a small test wash of this flour that I had hung and cured zombie tech, threw it in the freezer. I did this first test wash and I got nothing back. And I'm like, okay,
Oh damn.
maybe, maybe it's because I'm using these small bags, right? Okay. So I look and I'm like, well, maybe it's because the way I had my stack. So I look and I'm like, no, you had your bags right. All right. Well, there's only one way to find out. So I looked online. I'm like, I'm gonna have to get some bigger bags. And I had Aether Green had just come out with their bag stack with the rings.
With
Well, I
rosin
mean, I guess
evolution, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, they come out with it pretty recently, and I'm like, yeah, that looks like my kind of jam. I can do it one handed. I'm like, that just looks like the easiest method for me. $250, but it was the best $250 I ever spent. I'll never look back. You can replace each one of the bags individually. You just go on Roz and Evo's website. I mean, it's killer. They are killer. And I bought their 7 gallon bucket with the thermal jacket. So I'm like, all right, cool. This will be good. And so I get everything ready. I'm outside. And I remember watching a video I'd shared once about from peer pressure. And they were talking about whether or not to use ice and temperature of the water. And I remember him being very, very specific about 32 to 34 degrees. It's like there's a huge drop off after 34 degrees, and if you can keep it between 32 and 34, then you're going to be doing really well. And if you do that, we're really noticing that we don't have to use ice all the time. So I'm like, okay, cool. So it felt right to me. That's what I decided to do. So Got my water. Water's all good. Dump in all this fresh frozen or the zombie cure UK riot flour into the wash. I let it soak for 30 minutes. I hand paddled. I think I used a spatula, and then I ended up using a whisk, which is funny because I didn't know about Schwale's whisk tech before. But I'm whipping all this flour up and stirring, and I'm just like in the back of my head, I'm like, man, what if it doesn't? What if I get nothing back? What am I gonna do? I'm like, just don't worry about it. So I keep going and get all my bags ready. I can't remember what I did. I did 220, got my flour material out of there, put that in the freezer, and then got my next bag stack ready. And I think I went 160 to 45. I was like, didn't without knowing
Yeah, no
much
need to
about it. I
pull
like
the
looked at an
those
old
middle
jar.
ones.
Go ahead.
Oh
Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, like for your first wash, like a lot of us do, anyways. But there's no
Like
need
a full
to pull
stack. Yeah.
73, 90, and 120. Like you can just cut your hassle down.
Yeah. So I'm like, let's just do this. Let's see. And so I dumped the water through, and I'm like, I definitely washed long enough. I agitated long enough, and water wasn't green. And these are just the few indicators that I knew. So I take my stack off, or I take the first bag off of there because there's nothing in it. I look at the next one. There's nothing in it. I see like particles, but no hash. I'm like, okay, it's all good. Take the next one off. I'm like, no way. Really? Like, take the next one off, nothing in it, and I'm down to the bucket now. And I'm just like,
Oh
okay,
damn, that's heartbreaking.
did I really just do that? Because I mean, it's just two plants, but each one of them was 1 point, about 1.5 pounds wet. They weren't
Yeah,
huge, but it was big for me.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, dude, this is brutal. And then here's the kicker. And then only ended up with a little bit of flour too, because I left my fans on in the room. When I left them hanging up, I didn't adjust the fans before I walked out of the room. So the fans were still blowing as though I was in flower mode,
Just blasting
and
it.
just blasting them. And 24 hours is all you need for that. Like, came back in the next morning. I was like, oh my gosh, I ruined these ones too. So that was a big deal for me, and a really part of the journey where I think a lot of people would quit for sure. But I was so damn determined. I'm like, I think that I can do this. I think I need to do regular seeds, and I need to find hash breeders. I need to find a hasher. If I find a real hash genetics, then let's give this another whirl. And because like there was a hunger for it at that point, and even though that was super discouraging, it really bummed me out. I'm like, 5 months of work, man. Like,
Yeah, no
wow, did this
shit.
really just happen? And expensive genetics, and um, but I think just knowing, knowing who I am, and knowing how I learn, and knowing that I learn through action, and I'm a visual learner, and I'm just like, I was determined. I'm like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to find
You're like, that'll
good
never happen
hash
to me again.
genetics. Yeah. And then I found, and then an article came out, and this is a big deal. This is kind of where it all turned into, from curiosity and determination into real true passion. I read the article that they dropped on Low Temp did with Schwale, and he was talking about basket weaving, his genetics and his breeding style, and he was talking about the gland size, and I was looking at his pictures and his macro shots, and how he had figured out a way to measure them while they're still on the plant. And I mean, it just opened up this door to a whole nother part of the world that I hadn't been able to see yet as a non-enfranchised hash head, right? I'm just brand new in hash. I didn't, and it expanded my horizon so significantly. Yeah, I give everything to Schwell, man. That guy, he just single-handedly stoked this fire in me that I don't know will ever get put out. So I'm very grateful for that. But expensive seeds again. But at this point, I'm like, now I know I'm asking other people in the community that I was chatting with about it. What do you know? Oh my gosh, he's the best breeder. Da da da. So yeah, I mean, it was a no brainer from that point. Like I had my sights set on Schwell genetics. I ended up getting Rose Fuzz and ZZ Bop, and I ended up starting with the ZZ Bop, and it's been magical, man. I popped six of them. Ended up with four females, and I ended up with three of them that lasted. So one
Okay.
of them ended up Herman, and I think it's my fault because I had a smaller sip. I had an actual half size earth box that I had that one in, and I think it was too shallow. And it really stressed it out. I was trying to push it at the same pace that I was pushing the full size earth boxes. And so it just didn't like it. I'd also gotten a new light before this new grow because that was a bottleneck for me. I knew that was going to be a big deal. I was still growing off of the AC Infinity light. And so I found the Grandmaster level. I was looking at the spectrum tuning lights, and they're really expensive, but he had one, the Explorer, and it was on sale for like 7.99. And big purchase, man. I
Yeah,
think
light's a
that
big
was the biggest
purchase.
one to date. I'd say that's the biggest one to date
Yeah.
for my garden, but it was the best because I have two channels, warm white, cool white. They have a recipe that you can follow. And so I just did that one for this grow, kind of in the same vein as I did the auto and the photo fem. I just let's follow their recipe on this grow, and then I can tweak it the way I want to next or when I feel comfortable. So
Totally. Yeah. No, I mean, it's, you make a lot of good points though about, again, going back to genetics, right? Like how important that is. And, I would say that two things. I would say one, it's great that you've sort of, got this process for deducing like, hey, what did I do wrong that I could, or what could be improved, I guess would be a better frame.
hmm
But also, it could very well be that one plant just was herm prone, and like I say
yep.
that as someone who's seen a lot of the hash forward lineage also seems to correlate with herm tendencies. And it's not, 100% causation, and it's not, if it hashes, it's going to herm. But I've seeing more often than not, out of the entire population of a hashing variety, there's going to
Uh-huh.
be some herm tendencies there. Whereas if like you look at something like a super lemon haze or something that's incredibly non-hash and incredibly stable sexually,
hmm
you
Yeah.
you don't end up with that. And so, I've talked about this with a couple other growers, like even Chem. Like Chem has a high herm tendency, but
hmm
the further you get away from the herm problems, also the further you get away from the Chem aspect.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's crazy. I wonder, and it's funny. I wonder if it has to do with, do you think there's a lot of F1s in hash genetics?
I mean, I don't know if I think there's a lot of polyhybrids in the industry as a whole. We're
Right.
breeding with a lot of like Frankenstein gummy bears, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah, for
is going to
sure.
give us a lot of situations. I think there's probably, to the basket weaving tech aspect, like there's probably a lot of lines that have been worked to the point where they may have lost certain things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of untested F1s. They're not even true F1s, but like untested these polyhybrid crosses
Yeah.
that have the benefit of a bunch of people like us who want to hunt through them and are cool with finding something unique. But also,
Yeah.
it's it's cool to hear that you like and found Schwalbe, because I feel like a lot of people find Bloom, and Bloom is a great breeder. He's a
Yeah.
great breeder for hash, but a lot of people find hash through Bloom, and that again creates that bottleneck of like everyone's growing for hash with Bloom. Whereas if you
Yeah. And
can grow,
it's funny. It's like, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm so sorry,
oh,
buddy.
you're all good, man.
So Bloom is all over in the market here. And so since I've been using cannabis again, like I've strictly been going to the dispensaries just because an older guy, right? Like I'm not going to go out and
Because you ghost
to the
washed
black.
your whole harvest.
Yeah, so but there's a lot of bloom strains for hash all over in our dispensaries, and so which is really nice because we have a good selection, right? And we have a couple companies that really do it right, and I love everything from Bloom. But I think right away I knew like since my goal was to grow the best medicine that I could for myself, I also didn't want to grow the same stuff that I can go and get at the dispensary. So I think that's why I originally kind of veered away from, not away from bloom, but Schwale was an easy choice because I didn't want to grow the same thing that I was going to just go to the dispensary and get, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm stoked to grow bloom, and I will. But it is interesting. I ended up going Schwale, Schwale, and Masonic. Masonic, I reached out to him and asking him some questions, and he really treated me so well. I mean, he sent me more seeds than anybody sent me, and just really broed with me. Sent me a T-shirt and a bunch of stickers, and I ordered like 4 packs of seeds. And the guy must have sent me and all his genetics. I know he runs Free Seed Day and all that stuff, and he has access to a lot of seeds. But he gave me his seeds, which was really cool.
Right.
So I've just had a really organic experience, like my experience learning how to cultivate and then getting into hash and meeting you and meeting everybody in the community has been so organic, and I'm so grateful for that because I feel like it's really easy um, to kind of force sometimes things feel forced or and I've been thinking about that a lot, how this progression has kind of been so natural and felt so natural, and it's just awesome.
Yeah.
I'm really digging it, man.
It's cool when the path rewards you for following. Like amor
Right.
fati, like love fate, like there is something to this. Like things present themselves when you need them. You
I
were
think
like,
so.
hey, I'm considering hash, and all of a sudden bags and a press appeared in your life. Like it has happened to me as well. Whether it's genetics or whether it's tools. Like I talk about with my hash lab, quote unquote, my home hash
Yeah.
assembly, that
Yeah.
like I got a freeze dryer because I was looking at freeze dryers, happened to be having a conversation with another hash maker about freeze dryers who was like, I have one of those.
Yeah.
Want to buy it? Like same with a
That's so
rosin
cool.
press. Like I was looking at upgrading to the dab press because I had a 5x5 bottle jack, 4 ton, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
And was like, okay, like I can't justify the low temp right now as much as I want it. The dab press is sort of the next in between for a
Yeah.
manageable price point. And then lo and behold, another hash maker friend of mine was like, hey, I've got a Sasquatch sitting in my garage getting dust. Like, can
Sick.
you just take this out of here for like $500? And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be right over, essentially. So,
Yeah, dude.
but like with every upgrade, then comes the learning process. Like I'd never used a pneumatic
Yeah.
pump and I'd never had an air compressor, and like I was
Crazy.
cranking it with a bottle jack. So I went from bottle jack to that. But I would
Yeah.
have never done that, right? Like, there's no
Right.
logical, hey, I do this for funsies at my house for a small girl. Let me
Yeah.
drop 5 racks on a press. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't. But to your point, like things happen on the journey that are like, hey, you're on the right path. Like, keep trying this, keep exploring that.
Intention, man. It's like yeah, like I said, with the just living by the seat of my pants all the time, I really is taken the adult me to really grab myself and sit myself down, and be like, dude, create a relationship with these plants because they're going to tell you how they want to grow. Just like
Yeah,
things like that have really helped with my process and helped me not spiral into something else, or spiral into like seeking notoriety. Early on, I wanted to film things. I wanted to film everything. That was a point behind Regular Grower. I wanted people to see a guy just like them making mistakes on his, grow journey. But pretty quickly and early on, in my mind, I'm like, look, there's a couple guys doing that. There's a couple guys that have done that, and also this camera's really getting in the way of you learning. Like it's really getting in the way. I'm stressing out about the camera, and now I'm not focused on the project at hand. I'm not focused on feeding my plants and re-amending my soil and tending to my worms. And so pretty early on, I like ditched that whole idea. I'm like, later on, if some content develops, then cool, And I'm grateful that I did because I felt like at the very beginning that could have easily taken me down the wrong path with the wrong intention. And so, yeah, just like remembering what my intention is for the plant, remembering what my goal is, and just keeping down that path. Yeah, it's really opened some doors.
Yeah, and
It's awesome.
recognizing what's additive and what's not. Like I think that's incredibly important that you saw right away. Like, hey, this is distracting from what my purpose
Yeah,
is, and like you said, you can get caught up in the YouTube rabbit hole or the editing
yeah.
rabbit hole or the gear rabbit hole, or it's like it's just like growing weed. Like there's so many rabbit holes,
Sponsorship.
right?
Yeah, all
How
of
do
it.
I make money? And like
Yeah,
I also think not you per se, but figuratively, like
yeah,
you fall into this savant bias of like I'm documenting this, so there's something to what I'm doing. And
yeah,
it takes some pain along the way to, figure out how this all works, how you approach like what happens when your grow gets PM, or what happens when you get
yeah.
HLV, or what happens when you get a ghost wash.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. How do you deal with it, and how do you adapt for sure? Yep. I think it's just that's awesome, man. Just asking ourselves the question,
Yeah.
what could I have done better? What went wrong there? And let's be honest about it.
Right.
It's
And
not always easy, but
it's the
it's
only way to get
you
better,
know,
right? Like
yeah.
you're like, these are the things that I did. And not with a judgment of any kind, just like here's the list. Here's things that I need to do next time.
Yep, exactly.
So,
Exactly.
well, I'm curious,
Yeah,
man.
it's been rad.
Like you mentioned that you are living in the tribal land, like as a part of the rest of the state. Like, how does that? What is cannabis like in a tribal setting versus the rest of the state? Like, how has that been with cultivation? Like, anything you want to maybe talk about on
Yeah.
that for a level?
Yeah, yeah, no worries. So it's interesting. So when I moved here from Colorado, I grew up in Longmont, right? And my little neighborhood was predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. I grew up on the east side over by like Loma Linda Elementary and Skyline High School and stuff. And
Oh
so when
yeah,
I came up to yeah, yeah, that's where I grew up, right over there. Ponderosa Circle and all that. Yeah.
oh yeah,
So
man. I'm right. I
when I
was right off
came
Alpine.
are you? How funny. Yeah,
I
yeah.
was.
It's
Yeah,
changed a
yeah,
lot. I've looked at the map a couple times, just to see how it's expanded. Because what my brother used to go to school in Mead. And
yeah.
back then it was all farmland, I'm like, oh man, I knew that place was going to blow up like that.
Right. You're like, man,
It
if I
kind
had
of
just
was
bought
when we
farmland
left,
back
but
then.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy developed now. So when I came up here, I had the unique misunderstanding of thinking that the Native Americans were Hispanic. And so culturally learning that Native Americans were nothing like they look in the movies, right?
Right. Yeah.
It was a
Absolutely.
whole experience, but it also was what kind of bonded me with them because I didn't. I'm a white guy, but I didn't get along with the other kids that were my color skin. I just came from a totally it was culture shock. I moved to a very tiny town on the Olympic Peninsula. I think we have 19,000 people, and you and I both know that Longmont's got what 3, 4, or 5 times that
Yeah, we've
amount of
got a
people.
hundred now, I
So
think. So.
yeah, that's what I was thinking about, right? Yeah. So friended, befriended, they befriended me early on, took me under their wing and so lots of my friends were a part of the tribe that's here. And it's so cool to experience that because I think it's when I first met my wife, before we got married, one of the questions she asked me was, um, what's your culture? Like, what does your family do for your culture? And I remember looking at her, I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, I mean, like, are you guys Irish? Do you celebrate any Irish holidays? Do you celebrate? And I'm like, not outside the calendar holidays.
You're like,
I'm
well, I
like,
drink
it
JMO on the
perplexed
St.
me.
Pat's Day.
Yeah, it perplexed me. And I have a little bit of like my family, not my parents are what they consider Jack Mormons, but I grew up in an LDS family per se, not quite as cookie cutter as you'd think. My mom smoked cigarettes, and drank caffeine, and so yeah, they call them Jack Mormons. Anyway, so um, God, where was I going with that? Gosh,
The
Leif,
tribal,
first
how
time
they
I
had
did
taken
that.
you in, and then sort of taking you
Oh
under their
yeah,
wing.
perfect. So learning about the tribes, Washington State has many, many tribes, and they all have casinos and there's so much culture in this state. Every year we do what's called canoe journeys, tribal canoe journeys, and it's how they used to. They call it their ancestral highways is the water, right? They all used to get in a canoe and travel to each other's tribes. That's how they traded. That's how they uh, did everything. And so every year, all the tribes in Washington State and in the Northwest, all the Salish tribes do what's called canoe journeys. And they all travel to one destination, stopping at every tribe on the way and picking up their canoe families. And so by the time you get to the very last stop, there's about 130 canoes, and everybody's singing their tribal songs. And I mean, it's one of the most powerful experiences that you'll ever experience. And if you're on that's if you're on shore watching, and I've had the unique opportunity to participate in it a few years now, and it's like very powerful. So Native American tribes in Washington State are very prevalent. They have a lot to do with culture. As far as cannabis goes, we all know that it's still illegal federally, but Washington State, uh, through compacts, creates, the tribes are able to open up a dispensary, and some tribes are able to do other things if they write it into their compact. Now, and that's how it's unique to the rest of the dispensaries in Washington State. So in Washington State, we can't do deli style. We can't smell the flower, but if you make an agreement and put it in your compact and Washington State approves it, then as a tribe, you could do deli style. You can even have consumption events if you write it into your compact. So, and then one of the biggest ones is if they agree to it, some companies will do larger than 1 gram rosin jars. They'll do baller jars. And that's a unique advantage that the tribal dispensaries have over the normal dispensaries. So it's just unique, like the way that cannabis and the tribes are able to navigate the industry is a little bit different. And so the my tribe ended up opening up the dispensary about 5 6 years ago. And so I was managing the gas station that's right next to it at the time. And so I kind of got to see the back end of the business. I got to see how the compact was developed. I got to see how the business started up. I got to learn how they deliver the product, how you order the product, and that was a really cool experience for me. It gave me I think all these things play a role in the passion for sure. For me, anyways. But yeah, so I got. What else did you ask me? Dang it, Ben.
Oh no, I was just no. I think that
Terrible
was
bud.
it. Like I was curious how like tribal lands and tribal cannabis essentially compared to sort of the rest of the state. It sounds like a lot of the
It's
just the
cool.
logistics on the sort of a granular level. But does that change? Like, does the tribe have written into the compact certain things with regard to cultivation?
Yeah, so there's been a couple tribes that have done it. So there's one that started to grow, and they actually consult. They had Ed Rosenthal was their consultant, and I didn't know it until I saw the ad for their brand in the Leaf magazine, and I saw the whole crew was standing in the grow, and I'm like looking at the picture. I'm like, oh man, that's Ed Rosenthal, man. I'm like, that's cool, and that's pretty common. Like tribes will find trusted partners or somebody they trust when they get into an industry, and they'll have a professional from that industry come and stay with them and help them develop a business, get the business up and running, and then get it off the ground, and then they'll take off. I mean, and that's pretty common. I'm sure that's probably pretty common for consultants, even non-tribal consultants. I'm sure that's how the relationship goes. But yeah, it's interesting. They have the ability to do some really cool stuff. I've seen two or three tribes start a cultivation. Um, what do you call that? Vertically integrated, isn't that
Yeah, yeah.
what that would be? Yeah, they get to grow it, sell it in the dispensary, and yeah. So it's been interesting to see. I think the coolest thing that I see tribes get to do, that's the most exciting for me, is the consumption events. I think those are a big deal. I think when there's one tribe, bigger tribe over towards Seattle, Muckleshoot, and they have a dispensary there. It's big, it's beautiful, and every summer they hold this big event, and all the big brands come out, and vendors and blowers, and it's really fun. Um,
That's
and it's
awesome.
unique. The dispensaries can't even open their jars in the in the building, let alone have consumption events. And I don't know. I think that's kind of like I just feel like those states that get to do those things, and the states that get to have the farmers markets and the hash meetups, it's like, man, I just feel like that's where it's at, man.
Yeah, I was talking about this with somebody today, actually, like in Colorado when I first moved out here, which is 2015. And
Hmm.
then, essentially 2016 was a very different landscape than it is now.
Hmm.
And one of the things that was everywhere was like these sessions, like Sundays, there were these places that was like Sundays you sesh, and like there would be 30 of these 8-foot plastic tables that somebody bought at Costco, and they are
Yeah,
lined up with hundreds of thousands of dollars of hash and rigs, and it's
that's cool.
it's just insane to think about that. But at the same time, to your point, servers and like the Discord side and like the post COVID cannabis industry, if you call it,
Yeah.
the have allowed for people who don't have access, like if you don't live near Denver, you may not have access to those kinds of things or that kind of introduction. Like I'm very
Yeah.
lucky that like we have a seed event every year that attracts a lot of the top breeders, and I can go and interact with them one on one and buy the seeds directly from them.
Yeah.
And there's a
That's
massive
sweet.
advantage to that. And if you weren't already on Reddit or on Discord or even Instagram at this point, you know, those sort of supplement that. If I don't want to go to events and I just want to reach out to a breeder or reach out to a seed bank, it's never been more accessible.
Right. Yeah, and it's a really big deal. That's something I yearned for, like always shopping at the dispensary. I mean, there's a lot of terps and a lot of flavors and a lot of jars out there that I would see on Instagram or see on the internet. You just don't have access to it. Bubbles one, I never had bubble hash. Um, I still like because I still need to wash some of this that I have, and I'm sure that I will have some, but that'll be the first experience I get to have with bubble hash, because it's just not available to me. It's not feasible in the retail market. And then as an older parent who got into this a little later, like I can't just go out and meet a plug.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's like, yeah, you're right. There is, and talking about people having their first dab experience. I mean, look at something like that. Yeah, you got an event like that. You got tables and dab rigs and hash on the table. I mean, they do it up here. The Heady Happenings, they do it at Mothership. They had a big event, hash competitions. But I mean, all these events have a dab bar. What a great place for somebody to get a chilled introduction to hash. Like, hey, first time.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
Way
most
better
people
than
aren't
like
gonna blast
propane
them.
Coleman torch, which was what we were
Yeah,
doing.
with the titanium swing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
If you were
crazy.
lucky, otherwise you were on
If
glass
you're
nails with
lucky, yeah.
domes.
Yeah,
Oh
crazy.
man, it's
Oh,
wild how
man.
far it's come. So you
But
have washed the ZZ Bop then, or you're preparing to
yeah,
wash
yeah,
it?
we kind of missed that whole last harvest. So
We
I
circle
planted
back.
those and got those bad boys going, and it was really cool because I had three plants, and all three of them gave me a unique expression as far as smell. All three of them had a different morphological expression as well, which was really cool. It kind of felt like I got to have three separate cultivations at the same time. It's really cool. And maybe it's just because I was looking at it through the lens of actually hunting, or not, semi hunting, I'll call it, just like
Hobby
having,
hunting.
yeah, hobby hunting. I had it on my radar, and I'm like investigating the differences between these three plants, and the whole grow is just killer, excited the whole time, and watching the trichomes develop, and learning so much more through this grow, not through the grow itself, but doing my own research on the back end and really starting to understand trichomes at a much deeper level, and the biosynthetic factory that they are, like it's just they fascinate me. So yeah, so I get this all done, and the light worked because my wet weight was, what was it, 3.73 pounds wet weight, and all three of them were about the same size, give or take a few. They were all about 3.5 pounds. So I'm like, whoa, wet weight, that's killer, dude. That's like double what my last one was, right? So I knew that my room worked better. My light definitely increased my productivity. The resin itself was just night and day different from everything else. And I kind of just knew. And the heads were so big when I scoped them and took pictures. I was like, dude, there's no way this is going to be ghost wash, you know?
Yeah.
It just can't happen. Like I really did it all right. And having no flavor and not getting to experience either one of the flowers from those two grows really stuck with me. So having flavor and terps and medicinal effects still around at the end was so important. And I did it. I did it, man. I chopped them down and got them in the freezer real quick. And I took 487 pounds. Here, I'm going to go inside. My dog's barking. Let me finish this one in here. So I got 487 grams, excuse me, fresh frozen. Put that in my 7-gallon bucket and got myself a 40-inch whisk, piano whisk. Tried that out. Worked really, really awesome. Um, and what did I end up with? I ended up with about 17 grams of bubble. It was 15 grams, but we all know that I had a regular sieve and chunks were flying and probably lost a gram from chunks flying. And then I tested a gram of it to see if it would melt. So I ended up with 15 grams of bubble. Got that dried, air dried. I used talked to Mr. Friday. I mean, what a wonderful resource, man. What an
Oh
awesome
yeah.
guy. Totally helping me out. We talked about food grade aluminum and it's like got some cool ideas and got myself a couple raw sheets of the aluminum, put those in my pizza boxes, and it helps speed up the air drying process immensely because they actually have some absorbing property to them as well, so they actually will, suck the moisture into them as well as the sublimation plate in the fridge. And so, yeah, everything was going great. The wash went good. The air dry went good. And left everything in the jar for another 24 hours just to make sure my hash wasn't going to be wet. And pressed it out. I used 160 and 35U bag. So I double bagged 35U inside the 160, pressed it at 150 because my press is about 10 degrees off. It's 10 degrees lower. And through some quick conversations, I don't know if I want to mention this. Last time I mentioned AI in the hash group, it's a big deal. I was talking to my AI for a minute and I'm like, hey, this is what's going on with my press. And it's like, yeah. And remember, when you press, it's going to increase about 10 degrees. I'm like, what? It's like, oh, yes, this is it. And I don't know if that's true. Have you ever heard that?
I haven't heard that specifically, but it makes sense conceptually, right? Like
Right,
you're applying pressure and friction and things that cause heat.
right. It made sense to me
And
too.
you're
So I
compressing
was
it, right?
like,
Like you're taking all that heat and you're pushing it into the smallest space possible. Like it
exactly.
conceptually
That's
it
what
makes
really
sense.
pushed it. Yeah, over the edge for me. I'm like, okay, I think I can trust this information. So I think 150 is good. And it's my first press, and I only did 7.25 grams of that bubble because the Nug Smasher Minis plates are 2.5 inches squared.
Okay.
So not very big, but so I wanted to make sure I didn't slip. I didn't want to blow out. I just wanted a nice and easy squish. I just want to make sure I could do it. And yeah, pressed it. It came out. I got a video of it. I got a little clip of it. It came out just fine. I can't even remember how long it is. I think I was pressing. I didn't even put pressure on it, right? I did the 30 seconds and let it sit there and melt. And just about when I saw the line of rosin start coming through the front of the bag is when I started to apply pressure. And so, I mean, and these are all things that I heard through the many countless hours of talking to everybody and watching content and reading. And you think you have to remember it all, you think you have to write down notes, but I promise you, if you're passionate enough about it and if you listen to enough, when the time comes, you're going to remember those details. So yeah, it worked out great, man. I got 3 grams of rosin back. So from what I understand, that's about normal. But I also am hand paddling, air drying. It's my first time, so I know for certain that more return can be captured just by me tightening up my SOP. So
Yeah, man. I mean
I'm
even
stoked.
even with the basic equipment you can do a lot, it's proof right there.
My buddy said, so I gave some to the same guy who introduced me to hash. So the same guy who gave me the Puffco. I gave him
Okay.
some of my rosin. He's like, "This is yours." It's like, "Yeah." And it's so funny too because the ZZ Bop really had like a tropical smoothie. One of the phenos smells like an orange push pop, which is just crazy. But what I found was when I got done pressing it, and the next day it started to smell more like a foot funk, and some of those heads are a little bigger in Schwell's genetics. So, and what I'm starting to learn, right, in those bigger heads, sometimes you can't even achieve the banana or the mothball or the DMT flavors until you get into those bigger heads. And I could be wrong about that, but that's what I was reading in some of Schwell's articles.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
different heads definitely. Like I don't know if there are certain heads that express certain profiles more, but I know that it's the same thing with like certain volatiles in the heads. Like
right.
certain terp profiles, certain cannabinoids, certain things that definitely affect that resin development, that cuticle development.
Hmm. Yeah, so it was interesting to see how much it changed, and then I've been chatting with somebody on Instagram that I met through Instagram, and they actually work in the industry here in Washington, which is really cool. I'm really grateful for their friendship and their mentorship, and they had reached out to me in my messages and was like, "Hey, man, it looks really good. Do you want some tips?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, all ears, man." They're like apprehensive to ask. And anyways, they've shared a lot of insight, and that's been really nice talking to them. But anyway, so I hand it to this guy and my buddy. I give it to him, and I wait about 24 hours. I'm like, let him have some time with the jar. And then the next night, I'm like, "All right, man, I've been waiting. Like, you got to tell me now." And he sends me a text and he says, "Look, I'm not even playing with you. It is the caviar of dabs." And I'm like, don't pull my leg, man. I'm like, you can be nice about it. I'm like, he's like, "No, I'm serious." And then in that moment, like, because imposter syndrome, right? And I don't want it to go to my head. I'm like, dude, it's homegrown, and it's always going to be better than what's in the store. Try not to toot my own horn and not to get too excited, but that's really what it is. Like even him, and us, we don't get to experience the top and the best of the best because all we can get is what's in the store here. So to have something that I grew all the way and that I washed and I pressed, and to have it be loud and proud and hand them the jar and have it work, it works very well. An immediate calm blanket over your body. It's a little too potent. I have to actually only use it at the end of the night so far. So, but yeah, that's the only one I've done so far because we've been getting ready for this trip. And so I've been meaning to wash the other two, just a small batch. I was just doing these because I have the 7-gallon bucket. I don't want to put more than 500 grams of fresh frozen in that bucket at a time. I don't know. I don't know if I can put more, but for now, that's kind of what I'm sticking to. And it gives me a couple washes for each plant. So it's going to be nice. I'll kind of have get like a multiple cracks at the same plant, basically, is the way I was looking at it.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a great approach, and like you said, overcrowding it is not gonna help your case. So,
Yeah, and
but
only need a little bit at a time. So I'm like, it just kind of gives me a little freedom to get more opportunities so that I'm not waiting three
an
months in between
experiment.
each wash, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. And
So,
and
and I
you have the
think
same
that'll be,
reference material, right? It's not like apples to
Mhm.
oranges, it's apples to apples.
It is apples to apples for sure. Yeah. So I think that'll be the next goal, like, um, this conversation has been nice actually because thinking about it. So for the next grow, it's like, well, okay, what's the next hurdle? And I think that'd be it. It's just, being ready to take clones on this time around because now that I'm growing regular seeds and I have some bangers from Masonic, some real special ones. And so um first time I ever looked at a pack of seeds and set them aside and said, I'm not going to grow those. I think those would be better down the line for breeding stock. I've never said that before, but I said it about his Starburst F3 and F4. He did a Starburst cross Starburst F3 crossed to Starburst F4 to stabilize it. And I'm like, man, this looks really good. But something in my gut, my intuition is telling me set it aside for later, And so just even thinking like that surprised me, and kind of, so I'm stoked, man. I'm stoked. It's that natural progression.
Hell yeah, man. No, that's awesome. And I get that. Like the last round of seeds I popped, I went through sort of this, like I want to pop stuff that I want to grow. I don't want to just pop like throwaways, like, and not that,
Hmm.
there's any throwaways, but,
Right.
I don't want to just be like, oh, well, I want to get rid of this. So let me pop it. Like I want to pop something I'm
Yeah.
excited
Yeah.
about, but maybe I'm not in a place where I'm ready to like, okay, if I pop this pack and I find something amazing, or I just find something I like and then I want to keep it forever. Like
Then
that's
I want to be ready to keep it forever. Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So
What do you think about all the tissue culture? I mean, now that what do you
I
think about it?
I
I don't
think
know too much,
there's
but
a lot of potential to it. I think, similarly to like we talked about with being forgiving, like have heard I've heard a lot of people say, it has to be 100% sterile. It has to be this. You have to have the agar right. You have to have the hormone balance right. You have to have all this stuff. And I believe them, right? It's science. Like this isn't,
hmm
new to can. This isn't something that potheads created.
right.
But I also have had friends who are like, man, you can do it. Like it's like anything else, right? Like yes, it works better if it's sterile. It works better if you have a hood. It works better if you're doing all the things. But
Yeah.
it doesn't mean you can't do it. It's like hash, right? Like yeah, it's nice to
Yeah,
have a
I was
cold
just gonna
room,
say that.
but
Yeah, dude.
you can do it in your kitchen. Like yeah, it works better when the room is cold, but doesn't mean you can't do it. And so
Yeah.
the thing with tissue culture for me is I I shudder to like I fear the things that I have no control over and I'm not impacted by. Meaning like I can't imagine having a power outage and having TC, or like, and that's where it's like redundancies, generators, things like that,
Yep.
or solve that problem. But for now, it's that. So I think on a small scale, to answer your question, like as a hobbyist, I
Yeah.
haven't gone down the TC route. And if I were to go down it, I would probably be looking for one of these more library style labs that are
Like
taking
the
in cuts.
Athena or something like that.
No, like oh god, there's a company. I think they're in Oklahoma. I don't want to
Hmm.
name because I don't know if it's the
Yeah,
right
it's all
name,
right. I'll
but
check it out.
it's like $100 a month, which is again like that's pretty cost prohibitive depending on what you're doing. But if you've hunted something and it's super special and you don't want to lose it, then you pay this sort of
That's
rent, and they
Yep.
keep your cut around. And then if you want it, they'll grow it out and they'll give you clean cuts of your cut back. And there's a lot of value to that, especially for commercial, right? Because they
Peace
have
of
the
mind
budget
too,
and
man. I'm like,
yeah, and you don't have to
like
keep
you
the
said,
library and
it
all that.
says,
But you're also looking at, like how much do you like this cut? Because that's $1,200 a year to keep it around,
yeah,
So
yeah.
like
So your
it
ROI, you
is
got
that
to have
balance,
something. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You're
So
right.
if it's truly a winner, like awesome. But like as a home grower, I feel I feel a certain type of way about sharing cuts, but I also
Yes.
was able to get my best cut back because I had shared it.
Yeah, and
So
you've mentioned that a few times. Like that is definitely a few of the things that you've shared about your story that have come up in your podcast. Like they really stuck out to me, and that's one of them right there. So
right.
sorry, just I
No,
appreciate
no,
that.
you're
Yeah,
good. And so yeah, so that like I think TC has its place. I think it is probably not for everyone, but I think if you are depending on how far down the rabbit hole and what rabbit hole you're down, like if you're
yeah,
hunting hashers, like there could be some value in that if you find I mean like let's talk about the unicorns, right? If you find a
yeah,
lemon hasher, like something
yeah.
that is lemon
Right.
lemon
Yeah,
haze terps and it dumps,
and
right?
it
Like
dumps.
that's something probably worth keeping around,
Yeah, for sure.
um, but
Yeah.
beyond that, like if it tastes sort of like everything else, I don't know. I don't know if that seems like a lot of extra work on a hobby level, but
Well,
every
I'm glad you said it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's why I was asking. It's something I was pondering in the back of my mind, but
but like
not.
our favorite topic is plant counts, right? And so like
Yeah.
if you're dealing with something like those limitations, which many home growers
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
then cloning really tiptoes towards gray areas, just by the
Yeah.
very nature of it. And so like, if you're taking a tray of clones from a plant like and they root, all of a
Yeah.
sudden now you've got a lot of plants.
30.
Yeah.
or,
So, or
yeah, or
however many,
whatever it is. Yeah.
96 or whatever's in your
I
tray.
think
So,
mine's 15. I think I have a
um,
15 plant count, so it's like it's
yeah.
it's good, and that's the max limit in
But
Washington,
like that's where
and
TC
I
I think is amazing because you don't have to keep a
yeah.
mom or a clone. Like you can be like, oh look, there's a library that has my shit in gel, and they can pull it out
Yeah.
whenever. So
Yeah, it's interesting. I think yeah, definitely maybe down the road or something. But I'm like I just for this last grow, I took the tent down when I got the new light, and so I created the grow space in the room. So now I have the 3x3 tent and the light and everything that goes with it freed up. Um, but with the lack of space and place to put it right now, I've actually been trying to convert a shed outside,
okay,
trying to put a new roof on it.
yeah,
And those are some of the things, right? Like I can't run out and buy a $1,500 tough shed
right.
to on real quick. So I have to instead go buy $300 of lumber and fix up the shed. But
Hey
but
man, get
um
creative.
but those and they're just some of the things that we have to do, and I'm okay with that. Kind of makes me feel like I'm living in the vein of the old days, because even though I again came into this part of the world a little later in my life, like cannabis has always been around, and I've always had a relationship with the plant. Um, and I've even when I was away from it, you stay in touch,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure.
So
Um,
yeah, I'm just grateful for the journey. So now that I've proven that I can do it, I actually got a really quality product. I think that was what impressed me the most. I'm like, okay, if this is what I did with hand paddle air dry under the circumstances that I'm in, washing outside. I'm like,
it can only
it's
go
only
up.
up it's only up from here, brother. Yeah. So just stoked, pumped, and excited to see where the rest of the journey goes. And I'm just grateful. Like the Discord it plays such a significant role for me. Just to have so many cool people to talk with. It gets lonely, and every
Yeah,
once in a while we need a pat on the back.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
look at this thing, man. I need you to tell me if it's cool or not, or how to do, So just grateful to have that space. It's nice. You guys have provided a really awesome, knowledgeable, and safe space for everybody to talk about this stuff, and we're all grateful, man.
Well, do what we can here, man, to make the movement grow. So, on that note, let's get into some rapid fires, and we'll see
Okay.
what where we stack up at the end here. So, just recapping a little bit, your first grow setup, by the hits, you're in an
Oh
earth
yeah,
box. You were growing 420 fast buds, apricot auto.
that's right. Yeah.
What was you were doing root-wise microbes and the Q.
Yeah,
Uh,
and Build a Soil Light. They did a
and build
light
a soil
mix
light.
instead of the 3.0, but that's the only time I ever bought that one. But
Okay.
yeah. So that was my original setup. It was AC Infinity. I had the 3x3 tent and the ion board light. I had the 6-inch inline fan, two oscillating fans, and an earth box. And so that was a pretty nice setup, really nice setup, a lot better than most
Yeah.
folks get to start with. So I was grateful for that.
And
Yeah.
how does that compare to what does your current setup look like?
So my current setup now, I'm in basically a 5x7 space
Okay.
underneath a 4x4 light that has it's a 4x4 footprint with a 5x5 coverage.
Okay.
So I got basically a 5x5 space. I have a tray to grow now that I'm very excited about. It's and with the grassroots bed that fits in it. It's basically the next step up from Earthbox. It's like a big boy Earthbox,
Okay.
and really was impressed with the way that worked out on this last grow. But I ended up that was one of the ones. That one ended up being male, and so it kind of bummed me out. I had to chop it down, but the growth was so explosive in the beginning. So, um, yeah. Anyway, the first one, that's how it was. It was Earthbox AC Infinity 3x3, and now we got the 5x5 space with the Grandmaster LED. Tarantula Explorer is the light. It's a 2-channel spectrum tuning light. It's fantastic. Even today, since I got it on sale at $7.99, I'd still buy it. for the retail price of $1,000. The light has been absolutely incredible, very powerful. Don't have to run it at full power. Just really impressive, and being able to switch to that warm spectrum in flower and kind of manipulate the resin a little bit. Um, it feels good. Yeah.
Wow. Control is everything, man.
Yeah.
So it sounds like organics over salts.
Yeah, big time. So, living soil, build a soil makes it so easy. I still haven't replaced any of the soil that's in my earth boxes. And now on this last grow, I actually ended up going out to the woods and harvesting some indigenous soil, uh, responsibly, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
They, only taking the leaf mold part of the soil and then just below it. So, like 2, 3 layers of soil. And I take like a 6 inch space, dig 6 inches down, and then I'll take a little more. And my problem was the tray to grow needs 4 bags of soil. And so I'm like, yeah, $50 a bag, it's a big cost up front, but that's one thing I will say about build a soil and living soil and these living soil systems. Like, you're going to buy that soil once, and then you just amend it, man.
Yeah.
It's the best way to go, dude. And it really, I don't know any other way, so I can't really speak to hydro, but man, it just enables you to have a different relationship with the plant because you're not measuring all the time. You're not grabbing cups and adding this, and then eventually you get excited and you start making your own ferments and you start making your own amendments for it. And yeah, so living soil is the way to go. I think definitely helps reduce cost, and I just think it's an overall better quality product at the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been. It was a cool experience for me as someone who's grown with salts, and I'm currently growing in quote unquote salts, of their jugs, whatever. But um,
Yeah.
I went organic, and it it was a learning experience. We're always learning with this. Like, I think
Hmm.
that they're both tools, right? And I think that that's, again, like, going back to your research thing, like, what is working for the people that are having success with what I'm trying to do, and
Yeah.
figuring out, like, the hash community has really latched on to regenerative and living soil. But if
Yeah.
you're growing for biomass, historically, you're going to have a harder time getting those yields than if you were
It's
growing with
true.
salts.
It's true. There's
So,
some of them that are squatty,
yeah.
It's like,
So
some of
certain
them don't like.
different
Yeah.
levers to push and pull, man. And also, on as far as the rapids, like, it seems like you have enjoyed growing from seed, as opposed to trying to go hunt down clones from a Discord or a bank or otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's it, and it might have a little more to do with just circumstance, maybe. If I, but now that clones are a little easier to access, and now I know about Archive, which is just right
Oh
by
man,
me,
yeah,
and
you're
one
lucky
of
to
the
be right
best
there.
places in the world. Well, and it's so cool because I met a guy from Archive, and we were chatting on Instagram, and small world that it is. He ended up having a cabin up here at a local lake that's real famous, and he's had it in his family for a long time, and he just so happens to be one of the main guys down at Archive, and just a wonderful guy. So he actually came up and bought fireworks from my brother-in-law because my brother-in-law has a big fireworks stand, Native American, and so I got to meet him, and he brought me up some flour, and I mean, it was just awesome, awesome experience. And so now now I have a connection at Archive that I get to talk about plants and get, it's just cool, man. This community is so cool, dude.
No, absolutely. I think it is like in those happenstance, encounters. Um,
Yep.
so flour or hash then?
Yeah, so hash definitely, but I kind of feel like you do, like I'll go back and forth. I don't ever toss the hash. I haven't tossed the hash to the side since I started smoking it, but I still enjoy a hash hole every once in a while. I
Okay.
have not smoked just flower though. I will say that.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I haven't smoked just flower by itself. If I'm smoking flower since I've started smoking hash, I will put some hash in it. So,
Okay.
but that might change. I've got some of this flower drying, and I was drying it for the purpose of rolling a hash hole of all its own, right? Like ZZ Bop flower, ZZ Bop hash. Just because we don't get to do that very often, but the flower is so gorgeous. I'm like, yeah, I'll probably smoke some of this all by itself.
No, that's an
Yeah.
awesome feeling. So you touched on it a little bit, but if, another home grower was listening and curious, like, what are a couple breeders that you've either found success with or have been excited by that you would recommend to them to, if they were going to go buy a pack?
Whew, man, that's a really good question. Yeah, because I can't just throw Farmhouse Studio at them for their first run. I think starting the way that I started, it, it really I find a lot of value in it, and I have been asked or given advice to one new grower before, and I did tell him to do what I did. I'm like, it's the best way. I feel like it's the best way. If you get yourself an earth box, and if you get, some living soil, you can choose what you want. But I say build a soil. I'd get 3.0 and an earth box. And if you do that and get an auto flower, Fast Buds is proven, and they have dumpers. You can go on YouTube and watch many videos. Home Grow TV, and then Basement Grow. They're squishing autoflowers a lot, so you can go and get an idea of what they're squishing, and then maybe grab that. But you can really take the Earth Box and the Build a soil all the way through the grow with water. You really could if you wanted to. It is possible. There is enough nutrients in that soil, and so I think just the hands-off approach of being able to, you don't have too much to worry about. You put the water down the tube, and you make sure that your plant has enough light and enough air. If you do those things and watch that first grow, by the end of it, something is going to spark in you. But
Yeah.
I think less is more. And I think the most important thing is just popping the seed. I think it's really important to get the seed in the ground and get it growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and you sort of tiptoed toward my next question, which is if you could offer, some advice to other home growers, either those that are trying it out or those considering taking the hash plunge, what would that advice be?
Okay. Well, for the first time growing, I would say find a place that's safe for your plant that you're not going to have to move it from. Get the soil in there, get the seed in the ground, and get it popped and growing. That way, you don't have to worry about moving it in the middle of the grow. You don't have to worry about any of those things that you didn't think were going to happen that will definitely happen. So find a safe space to grow your plant that you're not going to have to move it, get it in the soil, and pop it. As far as hash, if somebody asked me, it was growing just cannabis and they wanted to get into hash, I would 100% tell them to grab Schwale's genetics. Go to Farmhouse Studio, look on his website. He has different price points for his packs, a few different price points. I think there's a couple in there that are not, gonna sticker shock you. They're just proven, man. I'm like, and I saw it. The proof's in the pudding. All three of these plants are able to be washed. They're all gorgeous resin, and it really wasn't. I didn't have to do too much extra. Like make sure the plant grows, treat it with some intention and some positive vibes, and at the end of it, you're gonna have a plant to harvest that I'm pretty certain will wash for you if you treat it right. So that's what I would say.
No, I think that's some great advice, man. Where can people find you? If they've been listening to this, where can they follow along on your journey or catch up with you?
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, so I don't get to I post as often as I can at the end of a harvest when I'm done. It takes me a couple weeks to kind of compile. I like to put together a full video of the whole journey as much as I can, as much as I've documented along the way. But really, I hang out on Discord, and I have an Instagram. I made an Instagram for my gardening stuff. It's called at Regular Grower on Instagram, and you can find me there. I got, pictures of some of the living soil stuff that I do. I got some of my journeys from commercial fishing on there. I got lots of stuff, but you can always see what I'm doing with my garden on my Instagram at regular grower, spelled normal, REGULARGROWER. But yeah, other than that, Discord, I'm in the Homegrown Hashishan podcast Discord. If you haven't checked out that podcast, go and check that one out too. This is a great group of guys. Ben, yourself, just an amazing person. You've been instrumental in my journey, so I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Appreciate you
man.
stopping and chatting with me, man.
Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing your journey. Like one of the things I want to do in this or with this effort is highlight growers like you, like regular growers, people like that, like we all have this as a hobby and it's fun and want to explore that a little bit more. So I appreciate you taking the time and you know, sharing your experiences, and I appreciate that you stuck with it even after 2 harvests where the results weren't necessarily enough to
Oh
put
man.
a lot of people through it. So
I guess I love it enough, man, for sure.
yeah, no, that's cool,
That's
man. But
awesome.
well, guys, that's it for now. New episodes drop weekly to help you grow better weed, make better hash at home. Hit subscribe, leave a review, share with a friend. As always, I'm your host, Ben Owens, and we'll see you next time.